Hey guys, what's going on? I'm your host, Peter Blake, a special edition of Blake and Blake Sports, along with my co-host here, Mr. Blake Cabell. How you doing tonight, Blake?
Doing real great, Peter. Anytime we get together, it is all good.
Yeah, definitely a special edition on Tuesday night, and we always start off the sports web with bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. I think there's going to be a lot of that tonight, maybe some nonsense on your end. I'm just joking. But Blake is definitely going to disagree with me on the Gerald McCoy situation. So we're going to get into that just a little bit later. He's going to break down some film, and I'm going to disagree with him. Just get ready here. But we definitely got some big-time news today. Not very great news. In fact, it looks like, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN, that Jason Pierre-Paul suffered a fractured vertebrae in his neck. He is getting a second opinion, so the details are still coming in here to Bucks Report. But first and foremost, Pierre-Paul, 12.5 sacks. You hope for this player to basically not only come back and play on the football field, but hopefully it doesn't affect his quality of life at this point, because anytime you hear a broken neck, it could be a serious situation. But first and foremost, this team last year went through the injury situation with Kendall Beckwith getting into a car accident. And when it was originally reported, as we talked about the other night, Blake, it was a minor car accident. But obviously, that's not to be at this point, right?
I mean, in any given case, sometimes you don't realize a severity of an accident right away because the adrenaline's going through your body, and you don't realize it. From what I understand, he hydroplaned and lost control and made contact. But it's definitely, if it's something that's going to affect him long term, because football is a bang bang play. I mean, a bang bang type of game, and definitely with the neck injuries, is it nothing to be played with. Neck injury is what sidelined the A-Train. We thought he was pretty much indestructible. Unfortunately, he had a neck injury, and that ended his career. I just hope the same isn't with Pierre-Paul, but definitely his life is more important than this game. The man's got a wife and kids, and he's played enough football to where I think he'd be all right to lay it down if need be. But I hope it's not as bad as it is, because, he had the fireworks and then this car accident. It's just a couple of bad things happened to this guy, and he's been a class act since he's been in this league. So I just hate to see stories end like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at him, to me, he was the most consistent player on that defensive line last year, showed the most effort, 12.5 sacks. And coming into this year, you were pretty excited to see what Pierre-Paul could do under this Todd Bowles defense. So definitely want to get a lot of fans' comments tonight. I know there was a lot of fans upset about this situation. It came out of nowhere. I'm shocked by it, but as Keith Larson and a lot of Bucks Report, and of course, go read the articles on bucksreport.com and join our 61,000 following, either on the sports web or Blake and Blake Sports. Again, I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell. They have Shaq Barrett. They have Noah Spence. You drafted the kid in Anthony Nelson out of Iowa with the 4th round. So now these players were kind of looked at before as rotational. Didn't really much expect a lot out of them. Now you're definitely going to have to get those contributions, and I'm not sure if it's going to happen. And then how does this situation play out with JPP possibly being out for the year? Does that now say, okay, the Bucks have to basically keep Gerald McCoy, or do they continue on this route where most likely he's done in Tampa Bay? I think he's done in Tampa Bay. But it's a difficult situation because, look, I never looked at Gerald McCoy being able to play in a 3-4 at the defensive end in the first place. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. He's a good player, not a great player. I don't think he's worth the production at $13 million. But now it kind of convolutes things with JPP possibly being out for a year, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. It changes the aspect. Gerald McCoy has a size. He could have played defense at the 5 technique in a 3-4 system and just be controlled of one gap. It's just, we've always just been conventional here, running a 4-3 with every head coach. We've never really tried to test our limits, the lack for better words. We never try to test our limits ever with any of these coaches that we brought in here. We just kind of went vanilla all the time, and we got vanilla results every year. We're giving up points on the scoreboard and lackluster defense year after year. I don't think we ever really had a chance to test these players' limits and see what they can and cannot do until BA comes here. Bruce Arians, if nobody knows what that means, but I'm just saying in case people don't know the abbreviations. But BA, since BA gets here, he comes up with a simple theory: use players what they're good at and their strengths. I mean, it seems that's so hard to figure out in Tampa Bay for some reason.
Well, look, we can definitely get in more into this. I know we're going to tonight on Blake and Blake Sports, but it was reported by Tony Rossi and, of course, Jenna Lane of ESPN that $7.5 million of this contract, because it is a non-football injury, the Buccaneers may be able to receive it back. So it would definitely help out with the cap. But of course, they're at 1.7, 1.8, so they still have to free up about $2 or $3 million after that in order to sign their draft picks. I'm not going to get into all the cap consequences because I'm not really sure about everything that it entails. But do you think at this point, if this is a severe neck injury, which it looks like it's been reported by various outlets, NFL Network and ESPN, that the Bucs could recoup some of this money, if not half of it, maybe possibly all of it, but somewhat half of it, right?
Yeah, you could get some of that back because it comes into a non-football injury clause under there. I think that's what you're getting into there, and we could get some of that money back. Sad to say that we try to come up off of Jesse Paul's injury. Granted, he didn't do anything stupid either. Like when he got hurt as a car accident, that just happened. That can happen to anybody at any given time. And the way it rains here in Florida, you just got to be careful and
sure
take everything day by day.
All right, so a lot of controversy last night. I know on my end I got some comments, and that's okay. Like I said, on the sports web, everybody has an opinion. Everybody can have a different perspective. The way that I feel about Gerald McCoy, once again, I think he's seen his best days. I definitely don't think that the salary matches the production, and I don't appreciate, and I heard around town today on the radio how fans McCoy's able to do whatever he wants to because he's the veteran. He doesn't have to show up to OTAs. My thought process is I don't care if you have a new coach. You should want to try to impress that new coach, show up, be a professional, not get on Instagram. And my point of contention is we've seen this before. I think there's a lot of fans that are frustrated by McCoy, not necessarily just because of his play on the field, but his antics off of it, always talking, always saying he's going to do this and do that, and never really lives up to those expectations. Now, you feel a little bit differently, and that's okay. That's what we do here on Blake and Blake Sports. So I will let you have this platform to go ahead and break down some game footage of what you see and what he brings and let you have a retort, and we'll go back and forth, and then we'll get some questions here on Blake and Blake Sports, because just like the sports web, it's the evolution of sports talk television. We give you an opportunity to have an opinion, to have a different perspective. We will respect each other. We're not going to make it personal, and we're going to walk away as friends at the end of the night. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Go ahead and do your breakdown of your video here and tell me what you think McCoy brings to this Buccaneer defense that they could be possibly getting rid of in that $13 million. Go ahead.
Yep. And then you're going to go to Q&A, questions and answers with the fans next, right, Peter? Right after film?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Everybody, first off, fair use. This is fair use. We're talking about video NFL films here. And I'm gonna pick a random game. What was a pretty premier game? We'll go with Dallas Cowboys. We'll pick that big stage. Dallas, big offensive line running the ball. We'll pick that game. And I'm gonna pick that game because we had full strength of defensive line that play. So there's no excuse of whatever you see on this date.
Okay.
All right. So here we go, everybody. I'm gonna put it single-handed so you guys will see it. You guys will hear me, but you won't see me or Peter. All right. It's the first drive of the series. I believe Dallas goes on a 10-play drive here. I'm going to show it multiple times and slow it down. Peter, stop me if you have any questions on any of it.
Sure, absolutely. I'll let you do this. You can go ahead and run with this, and we'll go back and forth on it.
You can see it fine, right?
I can see it just fine. Yes, sir.
All right. It's a simple dive up the middle. Let's get the better view of this. All right. With 7 men. 7 men in the box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 offensive linemen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 8 if you count Whitehead down here in the box. Is down here. It's a simple straight dive. So let's see what happens here. And I've got to slow it down. There's McCoy and Vea here in the center. Of course, with Pierre Paul on the right and Nassib on the left. Then you got Glanton and Bond in the middle. Let's see what happens here. Ball is snap. They both, so you see both Sue and Vea both take a double team. So you both see these open gaps here. Bond's got to fill this lane.
Sure.
And Glanton got to fill this lane. Let's see what happens. Glanton overshoots. Nassib can't get off the block. And Zeke's up here for a first down, and poor old Adams has to make a tackle single-handedly on Zeke Elliott. Any questions on that play, Mr. Peter?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So McCoy and Sue and everybody fine. Only person that missed the play was Nassib and Glanton there, the linebacker. I mean, what did he change his name to? Smith, right?
Yeah, that's I believe it's Smith now, is it not?
Yeah.
He went to Cleveland.
Yeah. This is a simple screenplay. I'm not going to really break that down. I'm going to let this run. This is a screenplay. Defensive line, really, there's nothing here but to get over there and make the tackle on this. I'm just going to let this one roll through. I'm not going to slow it down. It's just a simple screenplay.
Okay.
All right, let's see what this next play is.
You can see him with the get off there. That's what you're trying to show. He still has the get off.
Still has it. You see it, right? No arguments, right?
Right. I'm not going to argue with you, but I don't see it on every play. That would be my point of contention.
Of course.
You don't see it on every play.
Yeah. Well, you can say that for a lot of people.
But if we're talking about if we're talking about a guy that's making
13.
$13 million a year, and the whole question is, does this guy deserve it? Is he the same type of player? I would think you would know this, that if he's 31, 32 years old, he's not going to get better from here. He's actually going to decline. And when you're done with this, I got some stats to throw it at you. You tell me what's going on here.
No problem. Here we go, Peter. McCoy with the get off, shrugs to run. What's that? The Dallas's star right tackle is up there fighting. Vea gets pressure. He gets the one-on-one. Incomplete pass, nearly picked off. Any problems? You want me to run that back for you?
No, that's fine. You're making your point. He does have some still. He is still get off, and he still is drawing those double teams. But there's also times where he's having single matchups, and I don't have what you have here, and he's not able to beat those single matchups.
Yeah, we'll see on this drive. I'm watching it first time. Well, again, just like you. I'm going to slow this down again. He gets the first down. I remember this play.
Get a little closer because I'm getting up there in age. And what you're watching right now is Blake and Blake Sports. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell, as I'm letting him run a little footage. And I tell you right now, Blake, I want to do this during the season. So get ready for this. I want to see we could break down Todd Bowles' defense. Sound good?
Yeah, I can. If everybody's got time, we can look at 2014 Arizona Cardinals as well.
Well, let's just look at this for right now, and then if you want to, if you can put that up, we can do that a little bit later.
All right. Vea and McCoy in the middle with Pierre Paul and Nassib on the outside. Look at McCoy's get off. This is probably a loop. Yep, McCoy goes upfield, and Pierre Paul's going to loop around. Vea's getting double teamed. Nassib should have won that battle. He had the one-on-one, but he didn't. And this is cover 2 and slipped it right between the corner and the safety for an easy first down.
Okay.
Was his first down on the 35.
Okay.
A long drive. I'm surprised they stayed in this whole drive, too. Nassib, false start. So now it's 1st and 5 on the 30.
And Keith says on that, looks like Vita Vea ate the double on that, because it looked like to me McCoy had single matchup and didn't get through. So
you talking about the pass play? It was a loop. He was supposed to go upfield, and Pierre Paul was supposed to come around. He didn't get around. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna bring this one closer. This is a nice run play, so everybody can see what we got going on here. I'm gonna bring this closer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, standard 4-3, same as usual. Vea and McCoy in the middle. I'm going to slow this down. And you got big money Curry and Pierre Paul on the defensive end positions.
Well, everyone knows that's your boy. So
yeah, let's see what happens here. McCoy falls down to one knee, gets up. Does he make the tackle? No, misses the tackle. But Vea comes in there and helps clean it up. That's not bad.
Okay. All right. So let's go back on air here. Let's talk to the fans.
Okay,
let's talk to them. And we're live here on Bucs Report, bucsreport.com. It's Blake and Blake Sports. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell, breaking down some McCoy tape. Johnny, what's going on? What's going on, Bucs Report? What's going on, Jeremiah? With the JPP thing, it will help and clear up the Buccaneers salary cap. Only, according to Jenna Lane of ESPN, only about 7.5 because it's a non-football injury, not the whole entire salary. That's what we believe. But we'll definitely go more into it here in the next couple days once we find out more information. Cornell says, best show ever. Go Bucs. Thanks a lot, Cornell. Tony Chu Jr., Jason Pierre-Paul is to make $14.9 million this year plus incentives. What's interesting is the $7.5 million. We've talked about that. The JPP injury, should we keep McCoy? Now, I know what you're going to say. You believe we should keep McCoy because of some of the tape that you ran there, but Keith Larson will mention that there are times where he's getting single matchups and he's not able to make the play. He's not able to do what he needs to do. And again, I go back to this. He's 31, 32 years old. He's making $13 million. I believe that McCoy has always been about, well, I need some help. Why not take a salary cut? Or if you're willing to want to be traded, show up to camp, show out, and show these people up, and then your trade value goes up. But, this is not only me saying this, Blake. It's coaching. It's Coach Arians. He's not as disruptive as he was years ago. He's still a good player. If he's here, he's our 3 technique. Would I like to see him be more disruptive? Yeah, but we can use him a ton. What he's saying basically in so many words, and the stats dictate this. In 2018, 28 tackles, 6 sacks. In 2017, 47 tackles, 6 sacks. His best year by far was 2013, 50 tackles and 9.5 sacks. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that he doesn't have the players around him. But what I will say is this. If people are going to say he's so great, why would he need those players around him? Why would he be able to make those players around him as good as him or better?
I think you could say in any sport, if you have one good player and there's no good players around him, except for the exception of LeBron James, you're not going to really do anything in the long term of it. You're still going to be tanking. You're still going to have a bad season all year. And football is such an intricate thing. I get it. I get what you guys are saying. I totally get it. I guess me is just, I hate seeing somebody that's done everything that they're supposed to do and get the back end of the foot will get kicked the way he does. Unlike other players that we've had and brought in around the league and all that. $13 million, I can get that, but that's what the Buccaneers agreed to the contract with. And the only reason we're in this situation is because we keep overpaying for players that probably don't want to come here unless they get overpaid, aka Ryan Jensen, Deshaun Jackson, etc. Players, veteran players we bring in, but
right.
And if we could have signed them to
it's a two-way street. Yeah. Right? I mean, if you overperform your contract, then basically you're up for a contract extension. But if you underperform, then the team should basically value the $13 million. And what I'm saying is, if he truly is a team player and he wants help around him and he wants to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for the future, show up to the OTAs or take a contract. And to me, he knew at the end of the season, the writing was on the wall. He was saying it. I don't think I'm going to be back here. He knew already. So why is this a surprise? And if a coach is going to call you out, and really, if you look at the comments again, he's still saying he's a good player. He's just saying he's not as disruptive as he was 4 years ago. Guess what? The stats show he's not as disruptive as he was 4 years ago. What's the problem?
But McCoy is never
a highly sensitive player that has been sensitive over his career. That's the problem.
But McCoy has never been a sack machine to begin with. When he came out of Oklahoma, his key part was a disruptive player. And yes, he had never had the help as all his predecessors have had. The Ndamukong Suh has had help there in Detroit with defensive linemen. I mean, he's basically done it by himself. We're actually asking him to get more sacks than the defensive end at an interior lineman position, playing a position that isn't built for an interior lineman to get sacks. But granted, truth be told, McCoy did bite off a little more than he could chew. He did try to bear and make sure that he was the franchise player, the leader of this team. I think he should have never done that and then just played his position. I do agree with y'all that he did put himself on that platform, got in front of everybody. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I think he was young and didn't really realize what he was saying until later on when it all came back to bite him in the rear. You should have never tried to live up to Sapp's expectations of Sapp's. What he did was here. You should have just said from the beginning, you're going to try to be yourself and do the best that you can with this team. That is his fault. And then a lot of it coming into the end, him making all these Twitters and all that. He is a sensitive guy, but he's always been like that. This is not like this is somebody new. It's the same person since he got here. So it's not like he was Billy Bad A from the beginning and then turned into soft, cuddly McCoy. He's been like that since he's got here. You could look like you want to say something, Peter.
Well, yeah, and we're live here on Blake and Blake Sports on Bucs Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Blake Cabell, having a great conversation, a great debate as we do here every nightly on Bucs Report, BucsReport.com. Join our 61,000 following. Again, I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Blake Cabell. Yeah, and a couple years back, he's saying, well, fans are calling me out on social media, so come and meet me at One Buck Place. And then he's going on Instagram. It seems like he's either attacking Bruce. Well, he said it. I
think the quote was, he said, those are things, they say things that they would never say to our face. And then Safarian Jenkins was the one that said, come up and see me up there. I remember what you're talking about.
But McCoy said, meet me at One Buck Place. There's a lot of keyboard warriors out there that won't say it to my face. And I think that's why fans don't necessarily feel so great about him, because you're right. He put all these, he's the one that did it.
He did do
right?
that. He did do that.
He's the one that put the expectations out there that he was going to be the franchise face. And then when it blew up in his face, a la like LeBron James, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. And then it blows up in your face. You get highly sensitive and you get into your feelings. And like I said, he's not a garbage player, but in my opinion, is he worth $13 million? No. The statistics show he's not. In fact, they declined on his tackles, and I get it. Could he help this team? Absolutely he could. If he would show up and people say, well, he has a right to do that. Fine, he has a right to do that. And also, when you put it out there on social media, I have a right to also judge it and be critical of it. And a lot of people are going to be critical of it, especially this fan base. And what they see is when McCoy says, look, I'm the franchise face of this, they see losing. They see a defense that hasn't been good. Is it all his fault? No, but you said it best. He put his face on this. He is the franchise leader of this defense, and it has not been good at all, right?
The worst, and all that's correct. Not arguing that. We both agree on that,
okay.
That part. We both agree on that. But what is he supposed to say at that point in time? There was no other defensive player. I get that part. What is he supposed to say? That he's trying to change the culture around on his team. I mean, when he got here, it was pretty bad.
Just don't say anything. Just go about your business as a professional. Levante David really doesn't get out into social media. I remember he had one incident with when Lovie Smith got fired. He got out there.
Yeah, but he was right. He was spot on.
Right. I mean, just go about your business. Derek Brooks didn't necessarily, have to talk. He just put it out there on the field. Again, like I said last night, shut up, go out there and do your job and prove it. And if this coaching staff is saying you're not as disruptive, prove them wrong. Show them that you are as disruptive. Show up in great shape. We get it that you're in great shape. That's your job as a football player. You should be in great shape. And I think you're unbelievable community member of what you've done for this community. You've done a lot of great things. But when you're putting yourself out there, you're going to get criticized, especially in social media. It's not a good optic, especially for a player that to me is declining. So let's go out to Blake and Blake Sports. Let's talk to these guys. Again, I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr.
Blowing it up. You got to get to them, Peter. They're blowing up in this chat.
Oh, they are blowing it up, and I didn't get a chance to read, everybody's comments. But Corey starts off with trolling like he always does. Bring back Donald Penn. I think Penn
should have never left.
Well, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But I think he's seen his best days. Let's go.
Oh yeah, not now. No.
Right. No. Jeremiah says, "What's going on? All back, no bite. All bark, no bite equals."
You starting from the bottom?
Yeah, I'm starting from the bottom here.
Yeah, there's a bunch, man. You might want to skip through.
Yeah, we had D. Winston tune in. He said that people are getting upset about guys not showing up to OTAs. That's fair, but I would think that, that's D. Okay. D again. Everybody has a right to their opinion. Nobody's wrong on this. We're going to debate. We're going to be friends at the end of the night. I just think with the new coaching staff, you would want to impress that Coach Arians and Todd Bowles, especially when you're getting called out. But Todd Bowles has been non-committed to just a 3-4. They were talking about a 3-1-7 and a 4-4. And also they have those sub packages. Speak about this a little bit, and then we'll go back to these comments here. D says both tackles. I missed the comment. The comments are going fast and furious. So go ahead and speak about this really quick, and then we'll go back to these comments.
Which one we speak on, Peter? I was looking at some of the comments too. Go on.
The sub packages and stuff like that.
You mean the hybrid stuff?
Right, hybrid stuff, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to get through this that one defensive series, and I was going to go into the Arizona 2014, and then you can when you do that, I was going to pull up 2014 Arizona so you can get a kind of look of what we're talking about here. But it's going to be hybrid. It's going to be different looks. BA said it best. So they said, BA, what kind of offense you plan on running? He said one that's going to change every week. Depends on the matchups. Correct answer. Sure. I like that, man. Right. If you got matchups with the backfield, then you go with the back of the backfield. If it's the tight end, you go to the tight end, etc. Same thing on defense is why I bring that up. It's interchangeable. If you see a weakness in the offense, then you attack it. If the tight end is not a threat, then you gauge your defense to attack somewhere else and give different looks. You can't come out in Mike Smith's defense vanilla and just play to not let him score. That's pretty much what he played. Bend but don't break defense. That's what you play. And we bended more. We broke more than we bended most of the time, with 29 points a game. Something needed to change. So I'm just glad there's going to be change here and probably can get the most out of these players who probably we were asking too much to begin with and just make them one gap players. Because I think, like I said to you and everybody at Bucks Report, I think it's a little easier to find a one gap player than it is a versatile player that can do many things. Because Roy Miller was great here when Shiano came in and made him a one gap player, which is what got him paid and went to Jacksonville. He ran one gap and he blew that gap up and he played well that last season. It was the best we ever seen him play. And I think BA and Bowles are going to get some of that out of these guys too.
Let's go out to Derek Jones. They say they didn't draft Fade to replace him. They drafted him to play. They don't even play the same position. You agree with that?
They don't. No, I get what. Derek. A lot of people don't look at it that way. They say, he plays defensive line. His only job is to get sacks. No, his job. What Vea is good at is disrupting the line of scrimmage, holding the line of scrimmage, not getting shoved back like Big Buddha Chris Baker used to do, getting shoved 20 yards downfield on a run play. You got to hold your spot at the line. Yeah, you remember him watch a couple of those old tapes. You'll see him with the secondary getting blocked.
Sure.
But Vea will hold the line of scrimmage, and that's what their job is. Their job isn't to get sacks every play. It's to free up linebackers. Like that first play I showed you is prime example of what your defensive tackle is to do. What you saw in that first play, you saw Gerald McCoy take on two people, and you saw Vea take on two people. That means the two linebackers were free. They had nobody else. But Glanton Smith, I think it's Smith, that missed the tackle. And he broke for 10 yards, and that's what happens when you don't fill your lane. Everybody else did their job. They ate up blocks, but the linebacker didn't make the tackle. Hopefully Devin White can do that here because he did kind of the same things, too, at LSU. He kind of ran into the back of the lineman, but that's the kind of tackles he's going to have to make playing smash mouth football. The sideline stuff is cute, but you're going to have to make those tackles in the gap, especially on a big back like Ezekiel Elliott.
Sure. All right, let's read the more comments. Somebody says fall down.
Jerome McCoy.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'll be honest, don't see a problem with keeping GMAC, not at 13 million, but I wouldn't mind
agree with that.
keeping him. Right. I mean, again, but does he want to be here? It seems like he doesn't necessarily want to be here because he's not showing up. And excuse my language, I think he's making an ass out of himself because he is trying to get traded or get cut from this.
All right, I'm going to answer that. Yes, McCoy handled this poorly. Yes, he got too sensitive. He should have never went on social media, shut his mouth, and came out and did what he's supposed to do. I agree. I'm not arguing that. Okay, move on from that. Now, the Buccaneers are poor at dealing with these situations. They like to sit back and play devil's advocate, and hopefully something turns one way. Then you can snap rope and make a decision, and that's when you screw up with these veterans. You don't play this game, this word game, with a guy like Gerald McCoy that's been in the league, out of respect that he's been in this league for this many, out of respect that what he's done for this community and everybody. You pull that man in the office and you tell him what's up. Like, look, we need you here for this. You're expendable. We might be able to move you. But it is what it is at this point. You're not, like you said, he's not productive like he is. He's not disruptive. You pull him in the office, and that's what you say to this man. He shouldn't have to find out information through social media. I guess that's the point I'm trying to get at. You owe somebody a little more respect than to go through social media and say wordplay in front of the press and stuff like that when it's a 9-year veteran.
Well, I think also it comes down to they're trying to increase trade value. They're not trying to give away their hand. So that's why they're playing wordplay. But going back to the main point, McCoy was talking about this at the end of the season. So he already knew that there was a possibility of him not coming back.
Interview. Yeah.
Right.
That interview, I get.
Okay. And what you're watching right now is Blake and Blake Sports. I'm your host, Peter Blake, here live on Tuesday night along with my buddy here, Blake Cabell. And again, we didn't kill each other. I think a lot of people were worried, oh, these guys are going to kill each. No, man. This is conversation.
I would never.
I'm not going against you at all, buddy. But we definitely got to be out at Ferg's on Saturday doing Blake and Blake Sports again. Took a little break, 1320 Central Avenue. Whether you want to watch the Rays or the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They did. What is it, 7-2, I think?
Let me pull that up real quick.
Once again, over the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yes, 6-3.
6-3. There you go. So the Tampa Bay Rays continue their winning streak as they beat the Diamondbacks. They beat them last night, 12-1. A splendid pitching performance by Blake Snell. And again, we're talking about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The big story of the day, JPP looks like he could be out for the year with a fractured vertebrae in his neck. Of course, he's trying to get second opinions, but from, all aspects of this situation, it's just a bad situation for the Bucs going forward defensively. Now, let's get on to some good news, and then we'll go back to these. In fact, let's read the comments, and then we'll get on to the good news for the day. Let's see. JPP don't beat his single matchup every time either. Neither did J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, or anyone else. That's Derek Jones. McCoy got off, but where is the big plays? Booger averaged nearly as many sacks per year as McCoy. Gerald McCoy needs to go on a diet. Corey, once again, trolling.
He actually lost weight. He went vegan.
He did. I could never go vegan, by the way. I don't eat vegetables. Yep. I've lost relationships over vegetables. In fact, true story. Somebody wanted to cook me breakfast, vegetables in the morning. I said I don't eat vegetables. End of the relationship before it started. There you go. Again, I'm your host, Peter Blake, all week here live on Bucs Report on the Sports Web. Exclusive here with Mr. Blake Cabell. McCoy makes a lot of money. If Bucs weren't broke, nobody would be focusing on McCoy's worth as a player. I think that's fair to a certain degree, but then again, the focus once again was the social media rant. Didn't like it.
Right, and I agree. He shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have done that. I agree. I'm not going to argue with you on that.
Somebody says this film is supposed to make a case for McCoy. It doesn't. Somebody didn't like that. McCoy is average at best, period. Overpaying is what the issue for McCoy is, though. How many times did Brooks restructure to help the cap in an effort to bring in better talent? And I always go back to this, right? Like McCoy was saying the last couple of years, and a lot of people's points has been, well, the Bucs as an organization haven't done enough for McCoy. And you can make that statement.
You know that's true.
Right. I think it is, because that has been a failure of them not necessarily. Now, they got JPP last year and he put up less statistics than he ever did before. Now, the guy's not been able to stay healthy. And again, he's getting up there in age. Have they done a great enough job of putting that? But as I go back and say, if you're a great player, you make the players around you great. With that being said, if he's all about, and this is the one thing I can respect about LeBron, and I make these comparisons. LeBron took less money to get those superstars in there. If McCoy wanted those players to help out his team, why not try to restructure his contract so those players can go? This goes for quarterbacks in the NFL. You look at Russell Wilson and how much money he's making, Joe Flacco. Basically, it's going to tear apart that team eventually. You have Tom Brady, one of the, if not the greatest quarterback in the game, taking less money. Why? Because he's trying to keep this team together and get players to help out. Your comment.
It's right. Well, LeBron never took a pay cut. He takes max deals every year, and I don't blame him. He's the face of the NBA, and
in the beginning they had the lose.
Right, Peter, you there? All right, we're still up. Hopefully, Peter pops back up. To go on what Peter will be back. To go on what he was. Oh, there he is. Give him a second, fans. Give him a second. All right, there you are. You're good. All right. To go on what you said about most teams like the Patriots. See, the Patriots are the upper echelon of what everybody needs to try to be like. You live through your draft. You move when players start asking for money. You let them go because they want a Super Bowl. Went deep, and teams overpay for people because they saw production in New England system because they use players for what they're good at. So you take pay cuts. That's why Tom Brady takes pay cuts, because they're already a finely tuned machine. So all they need to take pay cuts to make moves. That's a little different when you're in a winning organization. It's much easier to take pay cuts in a winning organization. Now, when you're talking about bottom tier teams like the Browns used to be, well, they still haven't changed yet. They're still the Browns. The Browns and the Bucks and everybody. Why does somebody want to take a pay cut in a system that's a mess? This team hasn't had a winning season in many years.
Sure.
Why would you take a pay cut on the team that's essentially bad every season? You change head coaches every 3 years. There's no incentive to take a pay cut. If this team was finely tuned and we had people ready and got young players up and coming, then yeah, absolutely take a pay cut. But that's why nobody takes pay cuts here. Well, the exception of Mike Evans took, I think it was $3 million slide, but he's going to get it back on the back end. But sure. That's the only way I have seen players take pay cuts in losing situations. We're not a winning situation yet. We look good on paper every year from what we see and what some other people say. They pick us to go to playoffs, but we don't really show it when it's game time. We kind of, like Cameron Brate said it best, we hang around 500 usually and then tend to slide off. I mean, that's usually what happens every year out for whatever reason, injuries, bad coaching, et cetera, et cetera. We find ways to find ourselves behind the 500 marker. But that's just in losing situations. To sum up what I'm trying to say is they don't take pay cuts in losing teams.
Well, I mean, and maybe he should take a pay cut. Maybe he should have in the past taken a pay cut, but he's not doing it. And he wants to live up to that contract of $13 million. So, again, there's teams around the NFL. There's players that do it all the time. And he just looks, to me, I always say this, the defense hasn't gotten better. The losing culture hasn't gotten better. Well, what's the main constant here? It's Gerald McCoy. Okay. I mean, it's out there. I get it. You can look at the statistics and look at what he does for the defensive line, but there's one main constant that's always stayed here with all the new coaches and everything else. It's always been Gerald McCoy. So I'm interested to see, look, if they let him go, how is the defense going to be affected? How is the locker room going to be affected? Of course, there's something going on because his captaincy was taken away. So I don't know. I don't know what he is, and I don't know if you listen to Ian Beckles, but this was another Bucks article on BucksReport.com written by Hagan, and one of his biggest detractors, Ian Beckles, on his podcast In the Trenches, he says McCoy is the most overblown athlete I've ever seen. I like a certain type of athlete, the guy who will fight you in an alley. That's the guy I want, not the guy who's self promoting himself, telling me how good he is. Don't tell me how good you are. You have 16 games to show me. I don't want to hear about it. You could fight, but you don't. You're not a fighter. He ain't a badass. He's a follower who's acting like a leader. That's not my type of dude. Your comments.
I agree with that impartial.
Okay.
He did. We talked about that. He tried to be the face of the franchise. He did try. But like I said, we came back to bite him in the rear afterwards. Like I said, he probably should have just played his position, came out and just came with the humble approach like Derrick Brooks always used to. What was Derrick Brooks' favorite line? I'm just trying to make the team. So that's how Gerald McCoy should have came out and just played that and just let the chips fall wherever they fall. Exactly. And I just hope, I know this is a little sidetrack, but it's what's going to happen when the season comes up. I hope people don't put the same expectations on Devin White as Derrick Brooks. Let this man make his own name. Please.
Thank you.
Let me say it again for the people in the back. Do not put Derrick Brooks' expectations on Devin White. Let Devin White make his own name.
And there you go. That's Mr. Blake Cabell, Blake and Blake Sports here live on Bucs Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake, nightly here. We usually have the Sports Web, but a special edition, a tape breakdown of Gerald McCoy. I mean, where do you get shows like that? We give you commentary. We give you breaking news of the day having to do with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and around the NFL. And then we also get your fans' responses. Let's go back to Bucs Report, get some of those responses. So McCoy can't handle the criticism on social media, then he needs to stay off social media. Good point, Ben. I agree with that. When someone showed up to tell McCoy to his face, he had them removed from one Buck place. That's what Keith says.
So he did? I didn't hear that.
Yeah. McCoy needs to grow. I hope it wasn't Keith. I don't think it was Keith on that.
Keith, he went up there.
McCoy needs to grow, you know what, and stop being sensitive. New England Supergate, because there was a Patriots fan that was being Cameron Decker, who was being a ultimate troll right now. He's trying to take that crown from Corey Brown, but I don't think anybody's going to take that. Corey's been away for a couple days here, so welcome back, Corey. Yeah, he's working. He's being paid when everyone else is making around the NFL at the same position. They did talk about Ndamukong Suh, who is paid at $14 million. Let's see here.
Less sacks than McCoy with a loaded roster in LA.
It's a good point. He plugs holes, disruptive, doesn't wild games with sacks, but yes, too much right now he makes because I'm a Bucs fan. Somebody says, I don't understand why fans from different teams tune into our team's live feeds. Really just makes you look like a big or looks like a bug. Okay. All right.
I find it
that's fine. Yeah. Let's see here. Go Bucs, Derrick Jones, but that doesn't mean most of those players at his position deserve that money either. Just because it's market value doesn't mean it's worth the value for most of these defensive tackles.
It's what they do, Derek. It's what they do. I mean, everybody's complaining about Jameis Winston's money, and I think Keith put that up. Winston's the only 16th. He's the 16th highest paid quarterback in the league. There's 32 teams, so that means he's on the lower 16. So I put him in the middle. There's 32 teams. I put him in the middle of every other quarterback on the team, and a lot of them are still on rookie contracts as well.
Sure, absolutely. Derrick Jones, let's see here. The culture was bad last year in the locker room. Of course, you had the JPP comments about how everybody
was in it.
Well, that's true, but you wonder if JPP was also calling out McCoy at the time, and there was some reports that he did call out McCoy. McCoy wasn't playing at 100%, and that's my thing. I don't necessarily think it's always consistent. I think he's unbelievable when he wants to be. I think he's declined just a little bit, but when he wants to be, and these tackle numbers show you, I look at the year 2013, 50 tackles, 9.5 sacks. I'll take that all day long. But then you see 28, you see 47, you see 34, 34, 35, 30, and 28. And although he missed some games, I get that. And he's only played, 3 out of his 9 years healthy, because that's another thing. He's getting older, so most likely he's going to miss some games, whatever team he plays for. So I'm just throwing that out there. And the $13 million is definitely one of those things and one of those points that you have to look at, especially from the Buccaneer perspective, because they still have to sign their draft picks. Let's see. Tony Dungy still believes in Gerald McCoy. That's what Corey says. Warren Sapp could help him. At the end of the day, it's all about wins. McCoy doesn't win in Tampa. Is that a fair assessment? I think it is a fair assessment.
That's
Again,
true.
if your face is on that defense, and I always go back to this, he was the face of the defense. Well, you know, when you're joking around and you're doing this and you're celebrating when you're down by 8, maybe that's unfair. That tells me that's a direct reflection of your defense. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's an emotional statement on my part, not fair, but I think that's a lot of fans, how their perspective is of Gerald McCoy in this defense in the last 9 years.
Football is just the most team. It's the complete team sport. There's just not one player that's going to literally change. Literally change your offense or defense. Everybody has to contribute. You can't just have a quarterback without no receivers, running back, or a D line or offensive line. It's really truly the team sport. And I know I've seen comments too, people saying that a defensive tackle is supposed to make the ends better. No, it's the unit that makes everybody get it. Everybody knows how to play together.
Right.
And with the plethora of players that have gone through over and over on this team, it's hard to find continuity on this team. We can't find it in the coaching staff. Hell, we're talking about getting rid of Light. So we're going to change GMs now too? We can't stay consistent anywhere.
The consistency is definitely not in this organization, and you're hoping that Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles, and this administration, along with Jason Light, can stay here consistently, because you see the inconsistent franchises like the Browns. I think they're getting to the point of where they could become a playoff contender. What has always been the constant thing? Change. So that's why it hasn't necessarily worked out. McCoy never made plays when it mattered. How do you feel about Devin White's abilities as a tackler? Could he become better at it? I think it remains to be seen. There was a lot, and you were critical of this. You watched some tape of him, and you didn't think he was the best tackler, but you do think he's an upgrade over Quan Alexander, right, Blake?
He is faster than Quan. I don't know if I don't want to say. I'm not sure yet to say if he has more instincts as Quan.
Mm-hmm.
But he's definitely more athletic than Quan. I'll give him that. He's faster and he has more ability. Like I said, if you look at most of his highlights, all the tackles are on quarterbacks, about 85% of them. And I like to compare, when you're talking about a pure speed and hitting linebacker, the first name that comes to my head is Patrick Willis. Very fast linebacker. And when you watch his Ole Miss tape, he put the hurting on people when they ran the ball, running backs or quarterbacks. I didn't really see Devin White smashing running backs that were either bigger than him or about his size. He kind of swung tackle down. He kind of does one of those swing tackles on them, uses the momentum to pull them down.
Right.
I didn't really see him stuff gaps and stuff running backs in the hole. And that's what makes me nervous. Like that play I showed you with Ezekiel Elliott. Is Devin White going to fill that lane and stick his head in that hole and make that tackle? That's why you draft the guy at 5, because he is going to do that.
And we'll get back to that in a moment, because now you have Josh Allen on the board. Now the conversation is kind of heated up with JPP being out possibly for a year. You could have drafted Josh Allen. You could have drafted Jalen Ferguson or your boy Polite in the 3rd round. They went with defensive backs, so you wonder if that's going to come back and haunt them. But as we started off the show, Shaq Barrett, Noah Spence, where have you been? And also Nelson, the 4th round pick, and of course Beckner, a defensive tackle. Those players are going to have to come in and contribute right away on this defensive line, right?
So we're relying on question marks. We're relying on guys that produced 1 sack last season, no sacks the year before, and that was including Curry. We're hoping to get water out of dust. That's what we're hoping for right now. And going in, the same thing we do, optimistic every year. Well, maybe this is the year we're going to switch it up.
Blake, I got to interrupt you. The text of the night.
Oh Lord,
Corey Brown, Chris Conte should play defensive end.
At this rate, why not? At this rate, Devin White better play defensive end. You're gonna draft that kind of linebacker at 5. He better have 10 sacks this season. He better have 10 sacks this season, because in a draft, and everybody said this over and over and over, this is a draft full of defensive linemen. The Buccaneers can fill the defensive line needs, and they can do it in the 2019 draft. 2019 draft comes around. First pick on the Buccaneers are up to pick. They pick Devin White. All right, we go with a linebacker. There's still plenty of defensive line. The second round, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick up a cornerback. All right. There's a couple of defensive linemen still out there. With the next pick, the third round, they're going to take another defensive back. Okay, Jalen Ferguson might still be there. Nope, Baltimore Ravens pick him up. So what I'm trying to say is in a draft where you were loaded with defensive linemen, you picked a linebacker in secondary in. That wasn't this was a draft that wasn't full with DBs. It was full of defensive linemen, and we went the other direction. What? What?
Hey, you know what? I salute him. We'll see what happens with this defensive line. I mean, now the big time question mark is with JPP's injury being your most consistent defensive lineman. You know, how is that going to affect these guys? Have to step up and look. If they decide to go another direction and get rid of McCoy and trade him, free up that $13 million, there are still free agents out there like a Muhammad Wilkerson, who has experience in Todd Bowles' system with the New York Jets, and also you have a Ziggy Ansah, who, you know, by all accounts is a little bit injured, but I think he can definitely bring it. You can get him on the cheap, and possibly a Sue if you wanted to go in that defensive tackle. Of course, the money has to be freed up at this point. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Once that's freed up, then basically you can go maybe in the second wave of free agency. That's if the Bucs get rid of McCoy. Your sense right now, Blake, do you think the Bucs are moving on from McCoy?
You better have a plan, and I say hold the brakes on that, Peter. Don't get these people riled up yet. You said the Bucs can sign these people, but you're not saying it correctly. I said, do these players want to sign with the Bucs as they're free agents? They have no obligation to this team.
Well, maybe Bruce Arians sells him because he's a player coach. No nonsense. You have Todd Bowles as a defensive coordinator. I mean, come on now. The glass isn't half empty. It's half full here.
I get you. I said, but this franchise isn't quite known for handling situations correctly, and we're going through it again with Gerald McCoy. Like, that's why I was bringing that up early. How important it is and critical to tell McCoy where he stands at with this team. I don't care if he pouts, call him on the phone if you don't want to come in. You tell him where you stand. Then you don't go on this Twitter rant and all this stuff. I think if you'd have set the groundwork from the beginning, I don't think none of this happens. But it's what's dead. It's done. It's done now. So
right.
Our history with these veteran players, and you've heard me on the chat all day, we don't handle it. We don't handle it correctly. We do these guys dirty. We lie to them to get them to come to this team and then change it once they get here. And TJ Ward was a jerk and all that, but I kind of lean in towards him a little bit because you promise this guy and sell him everything to get him to come here, and then the second he gets here, you're playing him part-time when you told him you were going to start him. You can't do that because they talk, and nobody's going to want to come here and deal with a type of franchise that does stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you could definitely make a point of that, and it could have been Mike Smith that he was told that he was going to start, and they felt like, you know, he wasn't going to be in their plan. So I don't know all the inside on that, but I will tell you that sometimes they definitely do not handle the contract situations and players leaving. They don't handle those situations.
And I think that, you pull that in-house. You don't have to go to the media for that. You just go behind doors and tell people where they are with the team. So they're not guessing. And I promise you, and I do promise you, if they had done that with McCoy, we wouldn't be talking about that right now. I promise you, instead of playing the guessing game, should have just pulled him in there and told him, you're expendable. Let him say what he wants to say in that room, and we're done until we do what we do. And that's it.
All right, let's read some more comments here on a spirited edition of Blake and Blake Sports. I'm your host, Peter Blake, live here on Tuesday night, along with Mr. Blake Cabell, as we're giving you a special treat. Of course, the breaking news of the day, JPP looks like he's going to be out for the year with a broken vertebrae in his neck with the car accident. We didn't even get a chance to talk about Rondé Barber being put in the Ring of Honor, so we'll get to that. Well, yeah, but let's get to these comments. I want to read all these comments, and then we'll talk about Rondé Barber, and we'll answer your comments and then get off of here. Tampa Bay media loves kissing McCoy's butt, especially Rick Stroud.
Because of the community thing.
Rondé Barber is going to be inducted into the Ring of Honor. We'll talk about that. Somebody says he's literally a snowflake. At least eat a salad, Peter. I do. But you can't have vegetables and eggs, okay? You just can't do it. I can't do it. Okay, guys, you got to have an omelet. You got to have the eggs and the cheese. I don't want tomatoes. I don't want lettuce. I don't want onions. I just want eggs, cheese, hash browns, and some bacon. Can I get that? All right, there you
For
go.
the ladies
Now,
out there wondering if when Peter, the BR groupies, you hear it right there. He does not want veggies. You hear that, ladies? We're putting the blueprint out for you. Peter is available, but don't bring veggies. Bring your passion. Just don't bring no veggies.
Yeah, bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring that nonsense called vegetables. Look, you can eat salad in a salad. I'm cool with that. But on my tacos, beef, cheese, and sour cream. And my eggs, it's simple. Keep it simple, man. Why ruin it? You get a sub, and I'm going off here on a crazy rant about food, and it's ridiculous. You have a sub, you want to eat a Philly cheesesteak, eat the Philly cheesesteak. I'm not trying to eat the vegetables that are on the Philly cheesesteak. All right, I'm done with talking food because I haven't ate yet. I'm hungry. So let's read some of these comments, and then we'll get out for the night here. Blake and Blake Sports. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell. 1 player, 2 full seasons, can't contribute from the hot tub. Watch John Lynch and Rondé Barber get in the Hall of Fame next year together. Peter pops up. Bucks report only played 2 full seasons, but it ain't like he missed the whole season either. I think they're talking about McCoy. Derek Jones, and I believe
everybody says that 3 full seasons. So what you're saying is he played 3 seasons, but he has 54 and a half sacks.
Bro, I mean, he's got some numbers. I mean, I'm looking at some of the numbers, but it's just not consistent. But
it's not. I agree.
Right. Them 6 Pro Bowls, he's gonna go to his head. Don't question him. Dude, shut up and make some plays. That's what Earl says. Eddie says that's the problem. It's the losing culture we all have gotten used to. Nobody wants to take one for the team because they already know we're losing. Derek Jones, he's not 13 million effective at this point. So if we're not in a winning situation, shouldn't that mean being in a house, learning the system, and helping the team do so? That's a great point by Keith. If you're a veteran, come in there, show everybody. Let's read some more comments, and we'll get back to that in a moment. Hot Tub, you said it. I didn't. Corey says, bye, guys. Bye, Corey. He's only completed 2 seasons. Coaching change. Derek says to Ben, Ben, really go look around him and see what the other guys are making, and then see how those numbers compare. McCoy leads the team in quarterback hits and pressures last season. Bucks defense stinks. 6 years, cannot score on defense. No 6 picks. Corey, that's not true. They have scored on
return one against the Bears.
You mentioned Chris Conte. You know what that means. It's like a Thanos snap at this point. All the Chris Conte haters are coming out. It's funny to see people who aren't in the league dispute what coaches and players in the league are saying. It's a good point.
I always quote, where are you getting your information from? And then they can't answer.
Right. Well, I mean, Bruce Arians said it himself. Ian Beckles said it. I mean, there's been players around the league have talked about McCoy and this defense overall. What's White got on Brooks anyway? He's his own player. Like Blake said, let him make his own legacy.
Let him make his own thing. I'm saying from the jump. Don't even start the Brooks conversation. Don't even ask him. What do you think about Derek Brooks? Do you think you're going to live up to that expectation? Stop setting this man up for failure from the beginning.
Right.
And they're going to do it because that's what they do. They said they're going to do the same. They're going to do it. The comparison is going to come up. And you remember, you heard me mention it first. It's going to happen.
Right. Well, it's the romantic period of that Bucks defense. A lot of people want that to happen again, and it may happen again, but it's going to be individual identities. Like Rick Pitino said about the Boston Celtics, Robert Parrish, Kevin, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, are not Kevin McHale are not coming through that door. It's a different team. Let them be their own. Let them embrace their greatness. Okay, I would go up there. If you know me, I would.
Talking about McCoy.
Yes, he just needs to be gone. I love to see that, but you guys aren't saying. Coaches around the league would have voted this guy as a top defensive tackle, Pro Bowls, all pros. But now, because Bruce is saying you're all glad you finally have some ammo.
Everybody's opinion changes because they're saying, because the people who don't want McCoy here, so they're hearing a coach say that. So now they got ammo. I get what he's saying.
Right. A loaded roster would actually make it harder to get sacks. You just said it, Blake. Out of all the things the team has gone through, these past seasons. There's one thing the team hasn't changed is McCoy's position. Something's got to change. I agree. That's what I was said. Derek Jones, we aren't the only one saying it. You're just saying you're staying in your bubble, sir. We drafted Vita Vea in the first round last year, so just trade McCoy. Just read those comments from about the league saying the same. Bucks Hard Knocks 2019. Corey, once again, being a troll. Keep it up, guys. We love the comments. I absolutely do. I don't think McCoy is worth it. We can get rid of him, replace him with one or two more players that will probably put on the same product as him. He's on the decline for sure because he's not one of the premier tackles in the game anymore. I agree with that. Arians needs to make a statement and push to trade him. I miss what you all said about Devin White. Does anyone remember? I do. I didn't necessarily care for drafting a middle linebacker at number 5, but I understand how Arians and Bowles, what they're saying, how they're going to use him. If they feel like that was the best player. For me, my contention was if there was a Josh Allen or Ed Oliver on the board, I would have rather drafted an Allen or an Oliver. But the pick has been made. They're going to go with Devin White. If he's going to be the new face of the defense, I have no problem with it. We're going to see how he plays in this defense going forward. Team sports, so when a member of the team isn't worth it, his pay, you make a move. I'll be glad when this situation is over so we can start talking X's and O's, and we try to do that here on Blake and Blake Sports. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr.
I'm getting back to it, bringing out the tape.
I know, good. I want you to. Gerald McCoy, new job, greet people at Raymond James Stadium. That's what Corey said. We need money to get him off the payroll. Picture's worth 1,000 words. When you see McCoy and Quan dance around the sidelines when they're trailing in games, that's not a good sign at all. That's not leadership. I agree. They cut every single high-dollar player then. We suck with all of them. How about that? Yeah, I mean, look, the defense wasn't good with Quan Alexander and wasn't good with Gerald McCoy. How is it going to be without him? Who knows? It may surprise you. It may actually be better because you have new blood and you have people that are going to buy into the system. I'm just saying. Guys, the difference between Donald and McCoy is that when the Rams need a big play at the end to shut the drive down, Donald is there. McCoy isn't for the Bucks.
I want this one, Peter. Jeremiah Hefner. He said, okay, Blake, why did he say White saying the next Ray Lewis? Who said?
Well, that was the scouting comparisons, as they always make those scouting comparisons every year, that Devin White could be the next Ray Lewis and he could be the next Patrick Willis along those lines. So those comparisons.
I got a comment for that one. You know who else said they were going to, you know what other player that they said was going to be the next Ray Lewis?
Who?
Monty Teo. So if you really want to take what the scouts say,
right?
Seriously. Oh, and I got another one. Mitchell Trubisky, Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson. They said their draft class wasn't a QB draft class, but all 3 of them made Pro Bowls. So I'm gonna say
very true.
Who are you getting your information from? Because they ain't been right in years.
And again, scouts don't know everything.
Yeah.
And the player personnel and the talking heads don't know everything. They make mistakes too, but they are a little bit more privy to the information. So you take it for what it's worth. Point blank, if McCoy doesn't go on Instagram and complain, none of us are talking about this. I agree.
Who?
McCoy trains point blank. If McCoy doesn't go on Instagram and complain, none of us are talking about this.
Yeah. That he's wrong for that. I agree. I'm not arguing that.
Okay. McCoy trains hard in the offseason. Regular season comes 6 sacks. That's it. That's what Earl says. Wouldn't there be a deadline as to when to sign the draft picks so they can learn the system? Is there a deadline for draft picks to be signed? Do you know of any deadline? You would think as soon as possible so you could get those players in camp. Right. But once again, if you only have 1.7, 1.8,
I don't know what they're waiting for.
It's not like you can go to the dollar store and get some type of discount, or you got like IOU. AI, what was it again?
IOU.
IOU, like in Dumb and Dumber. You better keep that one. No, you can't do that. You actually have to free up that money in order to sign the draft picks. So,
I don't know what they're waiting on.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Wouldn't there be a deadline? Okay, we bought that. It's okay, man. We know you have his jersey. You can still wear it. Training camp, I'm pretty sure that Quan is done. Tampa Bay fans have bloodlust. They will petition to fire anybody as soon as they have a single downturn. Now, come on. That's not fair to Tampa Bay sports fans. Not to generalize. I think they're just, look, they're Buccaneer fans that are passionate about this team. Mm-hmm. We know it every night on Bucs Report. That's why there's your 61,000 following here for the Sports Web, for Blake and Blake Sports, for all the great articles and content, because fans want to see this team win, and they haven't won in a long time, and all you hear is this. You don't hear enough of people going out there and performing at the level or where they're paid. They're just talking. That's it. Right. Noah Spence, defensive end. Yes, Corey, we think he will be.
Noah Spence, I talked to him on IG. He says he is more comfortable standing and rushing, playing that outside standing rushing.
Okay.
Versus what he played in college. And that he wouldn't speak on Mike Smith's theory, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't speak on it either.
Well, the question is then if he's more comfortable in that area, why didn't they explore that? They didn't. So then you could see Shaq Barrett possibly basically take JPP's spot there. And a lot of people say, well, he doesn't have a lot of film. Well, he's behind Von Miller.
Yeah, and Bradley Chubb.
You look at some of the film, it's pretty impressive. He has some moves, and I think the Broncos and Bronco fans alike were pretty upset with seeing him leave. What do you think about Shaq Barrett replacing JPP?
See, I don't like that sentence right there. Shaq Barrett replacing JPP. First off, Shaq Barrett hasn't won a Super Bowl.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he has. I'm sorry. Super Bowl playing defensive end, the same position as Pierre Paul, so that's an unfair assessment. He's a standing, rushing outside linebacker. I think he has shown signs of light and potential, but I don't think everybody should just put all the weight on. I think we do that too much here in Tampa Bay. We put on the line. I think it needs to be a team effort, especially when you don't have the production with the players we got. And then we only got 2 defensive linemen we brought in the draft. Bar take any of these guys that blow up that are undrafted players and make this roster, which I hope so, because we didn't really pick many in the NFL draft. So
sure.
Hopefully we can get some good rotation and get some production out of these guys.
All right, let's read some more comments. White is not a thumper. What I saw on tape was more athletic Barrett Rude. That's what Derek Jones says. Bucks have Shaq Barrett. Don't sleep on him. We just talked about him. Quantum except more missed tackles. I believe Noah Spence can contribute to this team. When you actually see it, he's still a bust at this point.
Yeah,
I think he's been injured. I think he's been disappointing. I'm not ready to call him a bust at this point. I don't think he's necessarily been used correctly. Mm-hmm. We always talk about it. You'll give a prospect at least 3 to 4 years and see what they have. Do or die season for Jason Light. Agree?
Yeah, especially with this draft, he's really a player. Well, fans are pissed. I'm one of them. This is pretty much it for him. I mean, I appreciate the Bucs keeping him around long enough, to try to build some continuity and get what he's trying to get here. I appreciate that instead of moving on so fast. This has got to work. You went and got your guy from Arizona, Bruce Arians, and and this was his draft here. You picked all DBs. Like I said, you had a defensive line draft, and you picked defensive backs and a fast linebacker. So I hope this works to see us win, and for his sake, because we'll be having another GM here soon if it doesn't.
Please don't mention Noah Spence again, man. Please. That's what Derek Jones says. White had 133 tackles his junior season, 123 his senior. So how do you figure all his tackles were on the WB?
Quarterback?
Yeah. Yeah, Manti Te'o racked up a ton of tackles too. Well, if you don't sign, the Bucs still own their rights. No, Matt, how you look at it, he had 256 tackles in his last 2 years. Hopefully their defensive backs we drafted don't end up like Savvy Piscatelli, who was also a big, fast defensive back and was just terrible, who a lot of fans and a lot of pundits compared to the next John Lynch. That didn't happen. Mm-hmm. He was not even close to John Lynch, not even in the same breath. And we'll talk about Rondé Barber in a minute. Sue is no more effective than McCoy. He's wanting more money than we pay McCoy right now. This is the perfect time for the Bucs to be on Hard Knocks just for entertainment purposes. I wasn't saying anyone didn't pay but he mentioned all his tackles came on the quarterback or just an arm tackle. All I'm saying is 256 tackles is 256 tackles. Shouldn't guarantee anyone a starting spot. Got to earn it. Great point. Huh?
Can I comment on that one? The tackle.
Sure, go ahead.
Talking about Devin White. There's 2 comments with Devin White. Barrett Ruud was the best tackler on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they were 10 yards downfield. So you can have 1,000,000 tackles as a linebacker 10 yards downfield. Now, I'm not saying all White's tackles were 10 yards downfield, but y'all get what I'm saying here. Sure. You can have 1,000,000 useless tackles 10 yards downfield when they're picking up first downs. And what I was saying, I think it was Chris that you said that made that comment about 133 and all his tackles were on the quarterback.
Sure.
If you go to his highlight tape right now, his highlights will be him chasing down quarterbacks, running the option play. That will be all his highlights. I'm sure everybody's seen Devin White's highlights, and you're going to agree. They were all quarterbacks, running quarterbacks that he was making his tackles on. You didn't see him blowing up any running backs in the gap. You didn't see any of those. Now pull up a Patrick Willis or a Ray Lewis highlight. You'll see those guys blowing up running backs in the gap and stuffing them at the line of scrimmage for short. That's my point. All the tape shows is athletic ability. I ain't doubting that. But in this league, that's only going to get you so far. You have to – everything is from the game up, how you dissect plays and how you know what's coming at the linebacker position. If he's going to stand in there and rely on his speed, he's going to have to get off blocks and not get pancaked, or we're going to be giving up big running lanes. I hope he does well. He's a Buccaneer now, and all that doesn't matter how I felt before the draft. He's a Buck now, and I'm ready to roll with it.
That's it.
There's some concerns.
Sure, of course, there's always concerns with every draft pick, especially with the middle linebacker being selected that high. But again, Coach Arians talked about this and said, it's not about position. It's about the importance. We knew he was our guy. We're going to use him in different ways. We're going to use him to rush off the edge. So we'll see what happens. I mean,
he is a good edge rusher. I'll give him that. He is really good coming off the edge, and I really hope that we use him in that way and they get the most production out of him. I'm looking forward to that.
I mean, you can also blitz up the middle. So we'll see what Todd Bowles and this defense puts together, but I'm definitely going to give it a chance. I think it's disappointing if JPP is out for the year because you lose your most consistent player along with your biggest sacker with 12.5 sacks. So you have to replace that production somehow. And hopefully Todd Bowles and this defensive coaching staff will be able to do it. We'll see what they do in the second wave of free agency, because eventually they're going to have to cut some money in order to sign their draft picks, and they may have some money to go out and possibly sign a veteran. Who knows? Let's see. Just because the draft pick refuses to sign doesn't make him a free agent. Trade Gerald McCoy and Brate to the Bears for Mac. Corey, once again, boy, oh boy, you're just on it tonight.
Yeah, he is.
That's not going to happen. Maybe Bruce Arians can play defensive end. That's funny. Hard Knocks is a coach killer. Every coach that has been on that show gets fired in 2 seasons or less. As soon as we leave the Buccaneers and start winning with another team, Buccaneer fans are going to say why he couldn't do that here. That's so true. A lot of when you get rid of players, they go to other teams, but it's because those teams basically franchise-wise are a lot stronger, and they're able to use that player more to his strengths and less to his weaknesses, which this franchise doesn't always do that well. Put spinach in that omelet, Peter. It's a breakfast changer. I'm not doing it, but I will do it on a quiche. A quiche is okay, but an omelet, no. Food. The way Vay be getting hurt, we may need McCoy for depth. Certainly possible. McCoy's only played 16 games in a season twice. Nothing wrong with expecting a top 5 pick to be dominant. Does anyone have a Brooks jersey that they're willing to sell? I don't think so. Andrew Adams and Justin Evans play better than TJ Ward and Conti. That's what Corey said. Okay, folks, there's been another Lawrence Taylor in the NFL. Not so stop Derek Brooks comparisons.
Thank you.
Khalil Mack comes to mind. John Randall for a short period. Quan's college numbers wasn't even close to White's. Okay, Blake, why did he say White, saying the next Ray Lewis? We already covered that. Probably why, right. Probably why Quan was a 3rd rounder pick and not a top 5. Don't, man. The NFL isn't even the same type of league now.
Brooke, Derek.
Yeah, they're going back and forth here. We haven't had coaching that has demanded anything from any of the players, high paid or drafted. I think that's fair. No, he said, speaking of Devin White, self-proclaimed that. Devin White wants to be a great linebacker. He wants to be the next $100 million player. I had a problem with the comments, but again, that's a player who wants to be the best. He's speaking of himself in third person. But then again, I trust the organization and their evaluation of him, and we'll see what he does on the field and what kind of leadership he brings. Shaq Barrett, Anthony Nelson, Beckner Jr. can be a solid rotational player if he can stay healthy. Has there been any news on Kendall Beckwith? There has been none at this point. Mm-hmm. Of course, hindsight is always 20/20, but how much are the Bucs regretting the decisions not to draft Jalen Ferguson now that JPP is out indefinitely? I think they may. Perhaps the Bucs pick up Shaq Lawson. He's had some shoulder problems, so I'm not sure if the Bills are willing to get rid of him. And, of course, try to trade him. Organization. Right. You tried to say Quan was better than White. 256 tackles. There's no way they came on quarterbacks. I bet he will be better than Quan. Somebody says we replaced Quan with a better version of him, add more tackles. He's faster and he can cover better. I was just replying to what the guy said. Go ahead.
So we'll see.
We'll see if he's absolutely.
He's definitely more athletic than Quan, but all the rest of it, we'll see.
Exactly. I mean, he's going to be covering. I mean, my friend says 3rd and 5 league. Can he cover the running back out of the back in the flat? Can he get after the quarterback? Can he be instinctive? Can he make tackles? Is he going to be a guy that's going to have, a lot of broken tackles like Quan Alexander with the 78? So a lot of broken tackles for a guy that supposedly was a defensive leader on this team. A lot of people, you're missing out on Quan Alexander. Why? He missed a lot of tackles. We talked about it. I don't like Quan so much either, though he was all talk. You run right at him, and he'll take him out of the game, too. White won the Dick Butkus Award. Quan never did. My two favorite guys, Peter and Blake, Mr. Philip Schwegler of the Red Flag Podcast. Hopefully we can get you on this weekend at Ferg's or eventually here in the next couple of days. Blake and Blake rock, the best in the business. Thank you. Rookie minicamp this weekend. And means nothing, just like the Heisman. Now, what does mean something is, again, thank you very much for the support tonight on Blake and Blake Sports. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Blake Cabell. Let's wrap this up, talk about Rondé Barber. Not really a surprise to me being in the Ring of Honor. 16 years as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, whether it meant playing corner or playing safety. He was a selfless player. He made plays when it counted. And, of course, one of the greatest plays in Tampa Bay sports history, the 92-yard interception return in the NFC Championship game in 2003 to put the Bucs in the Super Bowl. Your thoughts on Mr. Barber being in the Ring of Honor for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Class act, selfless player, love this community, love this team. Deserves everything he gets. He should be in the Hall of Fame just because of the sacks alone. I think he should get in.
Well, look at these numbers. And people say, well, he was in a system. He was a system player. So was Jerry Rice and Joe Montana. What does that mean? Look at his statistics here. 47 interceptions, 28 sacks, 5 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro selections, and on the NFL's all-decade team in the 2000s, 15 forced fumbles, 11 fumble recoveries, NFL record, 215 games started as a defensive back. He is a Hall of Famer. He absolutely deserves to be in the Ring of Honor. Congratulations to Mr. Rondé Barber of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Blake Cabell, final thoughts.
There's so much. Yes, Rondé's in. Yep, Rondé's in. I got to see all the Ring of Honors go in, but final thoughts. We got to get to the quarterback. I think offense is going to be fine. We just got to, move the ball on the ground and all that. But let's just, stay positive in 2019. Stay positive and not bicker amongst fans and everybody like last year with the quarterback thing, and try to bring some positivity back to this Tampa Bay area.
I agree, and there was a challenge. There was challenges coming into 2019, but now with the JPP injury, it's becoming even more of a challenge. Let's see how this works out with the JPP situation and Gerald McCoy, and we will have it here live nightly on Bucs Report, BucsReport.com, on the sports web, Blake and Blake Sports. For Blake Cabell, I'm your host, Peter Blake. giving you something to think about. We'll see you later.